Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Couloir Mining Talks. I'm very excited to be joined again by Mr. Trey Wasser, CEO of Dryden Gold, for an update. It's been about 4 months since we last spoke, and in that short time, Dryden has been making very significant advancements with their project. Securing drill permits, launching an aggressive drill program at Gold Rock Camp, completing its acquisition from Alamos Gold, receiving government grants, and most importantly, hitting visible gold in their drilling intercepts at the new discovery at Elora. Trey, something tells me you're not a big fan of boring news flow. You like to get in there and you like to lead and make sure things get done.
Well, look, it's been an exciting time, and it certainly has really sped up here since the public offering last year. But then, especially this year, and once the momentum starts, and I can say there's two significant things with Dryden is we have such a great team. I mean, Maura, and with all her experience at Red Lake, running the exploration program there with a $50 million a year budget, and Anna worked with her there. So putting that team together with the experience in this type of deposit, but also running a big program, they're used to that. So
Right.
They're used to being able to scale up quickly, because working for a company like Goldcorp, once things start to click, they start throwing more money at you.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, in the junior space, that's always the challenge is the money. But we also are very lucky to have such an elite shareholder list, and so that we have been very successful last year in raising capital, including we've got the strategic investment we talked about before from Centerra in December last
Mm-hmm.
year, and so. Being in a position where the full year coming in on January 1st, we were fully funded for our $6 million exploration budget, plus fully funded for all of our G&A and marketing, and including the final payment to Alamos. That really has allowed us to put the pedal to the metal, if you will, because again, in a junior company, you're usually worried about how you're going to raise the next dollars to keep that drill rig turning.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just before we proceed, I'd love to talk about each one of those variables. Since our last conversation, it's been 4 months, and those advancements are very, very important. So for a second, let's just zoom out. I'm aware you've had your fair share working at Wall Street for a long amount of time. What's your current outlook on just the precious metals space, particularly in light of tariffs, inflation, junior mining sentiment, perhaps any macro themes that you're resonating with in this age of gold's bull run?
Well, look, gold has been, I think, the most interesting thing about this recent rise in the price of gold is it's been in an environment that fundamentally didn't really favor gold. High interest rates, and it's a very strong stock market, the things that generally put gold out of favor. And yet gold was really rising now. Now you have those fundamentals turning, and the fundamentals, the real interest rates have been dropping, and that's positive for gold. The stock market is starting to show some cracks in its armor, and I think it's probably not through in the corrective phase. And so the fundamentals now are, for the first time in several years, really beneficial to gold. So the fact that it went up as much as it did with bad fundamentals, I think it's set to go higher.
Mm-hmm.
You throw on top of that the tariffs, and I don't know, I think ultimately the tariffs, whether they're inflationary or not, I don't really get into the two sides on that. But tariffs, I think, will affect the economy, and I think it will slow down the economy for a period of time. I think the government in the U.S. even knows that. They've said, well, we need some time here for this. So again, if we get into and yet and yet the tariffs are also inflationary in that they do add some costs. Some of the costs are going to filter through of these tariffs. So you have a situation of stagflation, I think, that we're going to see for a period of time here. And again, that's something that's very beneficial for gold. So, look, I'm very bullish on gold. So maybe I'm just making all this up, but I think gold goes higher, and maybe not tomorrow, and maybe it needs to correct a little bit first because of this big run it's had. But I think the environment for gold investors is very, very good.
Perfect. Let's talk about Dryden Gold. You've begun advanced drilling at Gold Rock, received all necessary permits. How's the drilling going so far, and what's been the experience like at the site?
Well, the drilling is really going well, and in fact, the drillers. The ground there is very competent. We can drill year round. We haven't really had a big spring breakup like you usually have, so we're drilling about 150% above our budget right now as far as the time we allocated for drilling. We're in a 15,000 meter drill program this year, and we've already completed about 6,000 meters. So it's going very quickly, and I think that 15,000 meters will probably be completed by sometime early to mid August.
Wow, that's
And and so we, again, the team with their experience at Red Lake, and we really feel we're in well, we know that the setting there geologically is very much like Red Lake, and it has the same types of mineralization, the same types of controls, the same types of geometry to the geological formations there. And so again, Maura and Anna's experience at Red Lake and drilling underground there, because these structures are difficult to understand and follow and interpret to know exactly where to drill.
Mhm.
Most companies, what they would do is they would go in and they'd hit an intercept like we've hit, or even our predecessors. And again, it's what our predecessors did. Just spent all their money drilling right at that one place, never really doing any of the things you need to do to figure out, okay, uh, we need to be able to find more of these structures and define them at depth to really have something.
And what are those things that make you do that?
Well, one of the things well, two main things that our predecessor never did is one, full assays of the core. So you want to be assaying. They were only looking for the host rock in the quartz veins, and we assayed everything, and come to find out there's a lot of sheared volcanics and that are carrying gold. And so we've identified hanging wall and footwall structures, which has grown this one area in Gold Rock we're working on from three main structures. But now with the hanging wall and footwall structures to each of those, we've got multiple stacked structures in there. The second thing is doing the oriented core. And oriented core is something that's it's time consuming. Especially when you're doing full assays, you have to log and be very careful of your logging of every meter of core, what you're seeing and what the structures look like, how it's changing. And But that's, again, very important to be able to track how these structures are plunging and to stay on those structures as you drill. That way, you can really keep your finding costs down,
Right.
and not blow all your money drilling a bunch of holes.
Of course.
We're very targeted, and we've got a structural interpretation of this Gold Rock camp now that we've just gotten some new information from mapping last summer of a new fault structure. And so we're able to really target now, and I think we're starting to show, and I think we get a few more holes like this one we just announced. The market's really going to start to believe that not only is there a lot of high grade gold in this camp, but that these guys know how to find it.
So essentially, it's just a matter of having more data before making any decisions that lead to a decrease in essentially a cash position a company has.
That's absolutely right.
Perfect.
And to that, and again, this is a good thing about the camp and the access there is like we have already moved away from that. That the hole that we announced with that very high grade intercept is 301 grams over 3.9 meters. That was the fourth hole into that Jubilee zone from one drill pad. And even though we knew we had a big, exciting hole there, we have already moved on. So now it's not to say we won't drill that more, but we've already moved up to the Laurentian camp and another intercept target that we have. And we've drilled a few holes into Laurentian. Now we're doing the intercept. We're moving now that we've been able to evaluate that hole with the high grade and the other four, we know what that structure is doing. So now we're coming back, we're moving the drill pad, and we'll be drilling that from a different angle, which I think will not only be hitting this high grade hanging wall discovery and expanding that, but hitting the structure more in the heart of the visible gold and high grade gold.
Perfect. And in regards to the Sheridan property, you recently received drill permits and announced an upcoming exploration at the property. What should investors be watching from this asset?
Well, Sheridan is to the south, and we added to our property package with a very attractive purchase late last year. And Sheridan is again an area with very high grade gold on surface, 600 grams per ton, 617 it is on surface, several over 100 grams per ton. I mean, those are very high grade grab samples. The previous operator drilled about 20 holes there, but they had the wrong structural interpretation. And we did some extensive mapping, and we're now doing the geophysics on that. And what we've just figured is that there's some east-west trending shear zones that are carrying the high-grade gold in there. The previous operator was drilling just on the northeast structure, the main Manitou to Norwich structure, drilling it similar to the way you would that the drilling is going on in Gold Rock. And down there at Sheridan, it's a whole different kind of mineralization. It's ultramafic rocks setting. It's a different orientation to the structures. And so it took us to, about a year of mapping down there to get that figured out. And, now we're excited to get that down there and drilling. And while we're talking about Sheridan, we should probably talk about Hinman, because we haven't publicly announced it yet, but it's in our presentation and everything. So it's not new news. But we did get the permit for over at Hinman. Now that's over to the east. It's on a different east-west structure, a bit off of the main structure. Now that is in a granite setting. And we've done some work there. This is an area that nobody's ever explored. It's right on the Trans-Canada Highway. It was clear cut by the logging, and I think we went over this. Is that it's been the forestry there, the logging for the paper mill, and because we're on the Trans-Canada Highway and Highway 502 running right through Gold Rock, our property has gotten more than its share of logging activity, and that's what's opened this up, the Gold Rock area and down to Sheridan. We have access now, not on just on the highway from Dryden, and then on these logging roads. Over at Hinman, which is right on the Trans-Canada Highway running into Dryden, I guess they figured if we can haul the logs to the mill on the Trans-Canada Highway, we're going to take every single one of them. So they clear cut that, and I mean took every log. Time they drug everything out of there and the roads they put in, they exposed a lot of structures nobody's seen before. This is an area that's never been explored. So we did the geophysics there and identified 9 targets. And last summer we only got to test 3 of those, but got as high as 34 grams per ton on surface, several from 5 to 15 gram per tons on just 3 of the targets. So we now just also received the permit for Hinman. So we have 3 different permitted areas within this camp, and that are 3 totally different styles of mineralization.
Mhm.
The Hinman is much like the Next Gold's Goldland in that granodite. The sheared basalts setting that's down in the ultramafics
Mhm.
at Sheridan is again a lot like some of the areas uh, in West in Red
Mhm.
Lake. So, one of our goals for this year is to show the market, and especially our strategic investors, Alamos and Centerra, that this is a major, important new camp. And one of the ingredients you have is like, say, a Timmins camp. You've got all these different styles of mineralization. And that's what really makes up an exciting,
Mhm.
district scale play.
And in regards to the logging activity that you mentioned, is that something that's still being continuing and being in effect?
It's still ongoing.
Mhm.
They're not logging. They pretty much through, I think, for the time being,
Okay.
down where we are. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, the only activity there's going to be at Hinman is some reforestation,
Mhm.
since there's nothing else to cut over there. So I'm not sure of that, but for the time being, it's I mean, it's been 25 years that mill's been operating, and
Mhm.
like I said, but that being able to drive from Gold Rock on Highway 502, that it was one of the first areas that they accessed. So I would think they're for the most part done down in there, but it's they've already paved the way for us, so we don't need them to do any more.
Perfect. And in regards to the government grants that you received from the government of Ontario, receiving exploration grants from any kind of government is not a small thing for a junior exploration company. What does the funding mean for Dryden? And I mean, more broadly, perhaps, what could it mean for the government support for mining in the province?
Well, look, the bigger picture is that in mining in general now, the
Mhm.
market is really beginning to understand how important jurisdiction is. And all the problems that you're hearing coming out of Barrick losing their biggest producing mine in West Africa, uh, and issues around the world like that, with whether it's in Mexico raising tariffs, or raising royalty rates, and so Ontario and Quebec, in my opinion, are two of the best uh, jurisdictions in the world for mining.
The
I
world.
mean, well endowed. You have to have that first of all,
Mhm.
but then you do have a great ministry in Ontario and Quebec, but focus on Ontario. And the grants is just one part of that. I mean, we get 200 grand a year from them for these grants. So it's not the money as much as it is the message, right? And the biggest issue you have in Canada, all across Canada, for jurisdiction is if you have to have good relations with the First Nations, because the ministry, if you're when you're doing the permitting and that, they are always checking with the First Nations. They have to sign off if they have any issues, and we just have great relations
Mhm.
there. And again, the logins help that somewhat. So they're not dealing with ground that's pristine, undisturbed land. They're used to a bit of disturbance, and the logging course is a lot greater disturbance than the mining. Uh, but that it's a mining friendly group there. We this year will sign long term agreements with
Mhm.
our First Nations groups. That they're the two main ones anyway. But the fact that we were able to get these permits, speaks volumes of our relationship with the First Nations. They had no issues with three different permits,
Mhm.
and again, it's because Maura and Anna are both local there. They spend a lot of time, and treat them with respect. So you know, add to that the fact that both in Quebec and Ontario we can do flow through financing at a premium. Straight flow through at about a 1.2, and charity flow through at about 1.4. So when we raise investment dollars, for our exploration, for every dollar we raise and do a back end, put that in the back end of a charity flow through,
Mhm.
we get $1.40. So, for an example, when Centerra made their investment, and they love to do this. I mean, they're obviously a long-term holder, so
Mhm.
we don't need to worry about that flow through gets flipped. But they were the back end of the charity for about $2 million that we got a 1.42 delta on. So that 1.42 became almost $3 million. It 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 as excuse me, almost $2 million.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And in regards to your current capital structure and 2025 drilling plans, you've announced a fully funded 12 to 15,000 meter drill program for the year. Can you talk a bit more about how you're positioning Dryden from the financial perspective to maintain this level of exploration intensity?
That's look, the one thing about junior mining companies is you'd be hard pressed to show me very many that don't raise money every year. So while we are fully funded for this year, as I said, the drilling is going so well, we'll probably be through with this budgeted 15, and it'll be 15,000 meters
Mhm.
sometime in August, and we don't want to stop drilling then. So we'll be looking to raise more money to extend that program. Uh, all of the other field work that we're doing at Hinman and Sheridan, and we're doing a property-wide soil till geochem program this year. Again, that's funded in the current budget, but as a junior exploration company, you never wait till you're out of money to raise
Of
more money.
course. Yeah.
So look, we think we have a lot of good news flow before we announce some type of a deal. But also built into our capital structure is from the RTO that we did last year
Mhm.
or a year ago, January, was 38 million warrants at 30 cents. So, the stock today is 23 cents, which shows it's not going to take a lot more uh, 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 success on
Mhm.
our part for this stock to be trading above that 30-cent warrant price. Now, those warrants expire in December. So, there's a very good chance I feel that I'll be able to get those warrants exercised. Most of them are in very strong hands. Some of the large funds, Europac and Rob McEwen and Delbrook, that invested large amounts in the RTO. So those kind of accounts are much more likely to exercise the warrants without turning around and selling and putting pressure on the stock. So if we can get those warrants exercised this year,
Mhm.
that's $11.5 million. So that would pretty much set us up for 2026.
Absolutely, and in congruence to the upward trajectory you've been on for the past 4 months, which is reflected on the news flow and the stock as well. It definitely remains, a positive outlook to be seen in the future. Perfect. So, Trey, thank you very much. I just have one last question. In regards to the marketing activities that junior mining companies do, which can be or which is a very important aspect to their whole company. You've been very active. You've been to PDAC, Metals Investor Forum. You're on this podcast for the second time. For someone who still is a bit unfamiliar with Dryden, how would you summarize the company in less than 30 seconds?
Well, look, I would say that this is a big statement, but we think we own the next Red Lake camp. We own 70,000 hectares. It's our only project, so we're 100% focused on improving up this new underexplored district. And so it is, if the market starts to believe like the story that we're telling, and we continue to see these incredible high grade results, that we are in the next Red Lake camp, we don't own just a project there, we own the whole camp. So it could be a very, very valuable company.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be watching closely as you continue advancing the drill bit and building out the Dryden district story. To our listeners, be sure to check out Dryden Gold and follow along the future updates. See you on the next episode of Couloir Mining Talks. Thank you.
Thank you.